Hi, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today we have a question from our friend Stuart. Stuart says, I'm 43 and I'm a Sri Lankan living in the UK with my partner and our 5-year-old daughter. I followed your YouTube channel for a couple of years and I found it very useful. I've been training in Sanda for a couple of years and you have answered my questions with regards to Shaolin forms on your channel. Oh yeah, Stuart. Dude, I remember you. That was a great question, by the way. I wonder if you can please help me with something I've been struggling with for a long time. I've recently started training in Muay Thai. My coach is well known in the UK and I really enjoy it. Alright, cool. One thing I struggle with, to a point of stopping me from turning up. Ooh. Yeah, if something is making you think, I don't necessarily want to go to class anymore. Man, I had this one coach, taking it aside from the question, this Taekwondo coach. For every minute late to class that you were, you had to do something like 50 push-ups. So if you were 5 minutes late to class, 250 push-ups. If you were like 10 minutes late to class, oh man, you'd start being like, is it even worth it? I don't think I can physically do that many push-ups if I wanted to. And so, yeah, man, I remember sometimes if I was late, I'd be like, it's not even worth it to go anymore. So, we don't want those things that make us feel like we don't want to go anymore. That make us feel like shamed to show up. So let's see what it is that's bothering Stuart. One thing I struggle with to a point from stopping me from turning up is I've got really skinny legs. Okay. I can relate to that because I used to have really, really bone-thin, skeleton, skinny legs. And this has happened to me a number of times throughout my life. I was a skinny little dude when I was a kid. When I graduated high school, I was 90 pounds. That's what, like 43, 44 kilos at the same height I am now, 6'1", 185 centimeters tall. I put on a lot of weight, a lot of muscle since then. But as an adult, I also got really sick and lost a ton of weight, like lost half my body weight, went back down to an emaciated skeleton. This has happened multiple times throughout my life. So I can relate to that, just being absolutely embarrassed by my physique just looking like death without the Grim Reaper costume. Man, just the skeleton underneath covered in skin. It was gross. And I absolutely hated it, and I was terrified and petrified of people. I thought people would get all judgy, like, oh, look at that guy, yuck, get away, you don't belong here, you're not physically fit enough, you're not thick enough, you're not strong enough, whatever, you're too skinny. Anyway, I'll just finish your question here. But our friend Stuart, he wears kickboxing trousers to try to hide his skinny legs. He says, my coach always tells me that I'll be less hot and sweaty if I just wear shorts like everyone else. I'm very self-conscious that people will take one look at my skinny legs and judge me as a weakling. I train very hard and I work hard on my legs to compensate for the lack of size and mass. I've been doing squats and calf training to put some bulk, but it doesn't seem to work much. Let's see here. Yeah, man, I can relate to that. Doesn't seem to work much as I'm not mainly weight training. The weight training I do to bulk my legs seems to slow me down without much result in adding size. I just don't know if I could keep it on and be the only guy who wears trousers at the gym. Have you ever come across any of your students who have had a problem like this? Yeah, and I'm one of them. I don't really have anyone to ask for advice on how to overcome this. I would really appreciate it if you have any advice on this. If you're busy and I didn't get a response, then it's okay. Well, Stuart, guess what? You're getting a response. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, my friend. So a couple of things. Let's go back to bulking and weight training. If you want to gain weight and size in the legs, then yeah, squats are good and you should do that. Deadlifts also, and some variations as well. There are a lot of great weightlifting exercises that you can and should do. But in order to put on size, you have to eat more food. You have to consume more, especially carbohydrates. If you want to grow, then up the amount of carbohydrates you're eating. Yes, you need to eat proteins and healthy fats as well, but if you want to physically grow in size, up the number of carbohydrates you're eating. Up the number of total calories you're eating. If you're a really skinny guy, this is just a ballpark figure out there, but calculate what you're eating right now. And if you're not growing at all, eating that number, double it. Yeah, double it. And you might think, oh man, I can't eat meals that big. That's fine. Split them up. Instead of like 3 big meals, 6 smaller ones throughout the day. Okay? Now this is only if you really feel it's important to put on bulk. I'm a big fan of putting on bulk. I love it. I love having bigger muscles than being a skeleton. It's great. But not everybody needs that. There are some fantastic skinny fighters out there. First one that comes to mind is Zabit with that unpronounceable name from Dagestan. Dude's awesome. I saw him fight for the first time here in Shanghai for the Shanghai UFC event. He was fighting, I forget his name. I think he was a Brazilian dude anyway. This guy who looked like he had the physique of a superhero. When I saw Zabit for the first time, I was like, man, who is this skinny dude? He looks like he's going to get mauled by that bodybuilder-looking guy. Now, I've been in the fight game long enough to know that, physique doesn't necessarily determine the outcome of the fight. But when you see a scrawny-looking dude like that, who you've never seen fight before, it's hard to think, oh, this guy must be a badass fighter. Which Zabit totally is. And then the fight started, and all of a sudden Zabit started zipping around the cage doing all this awesome stuff. Fantastic striking, fantastic grappling, great wrestling. And I was like, whoa, this guy's amazing. And the fact that he's a scrawny dude makes it even more amazing. Whereas if Zabit looked like a bodybuilder, looked like an action figure, looked like a superhero, and he did all this exact same things, I would think, well, yeah, okay, he looks like he could do that. So you don't necessarily need to put on some bulk. I mean, it's fun to have that extra weight and strength to throw around. It's awesome. I enjoy it personally. Especially in the legs, man. Power in the legs, in my opinion, for combat sports is the most important type of power. And exercises like squats and deadlifts, more so than the fact that they strengthen your legs, they strengthen your whole body. They strengthen your posture. They strengthen your entire structure. That's why they're so great. But if you want to put on bulk, eat. You got to consume more calories. But going back to being self-conscious, there are some people out there with amazing physiques who still feel self-conscious. Have you ever run into a girl who was just absolutely beautiful, and she didn't know she was beautiful, and she thought she was ugly? This happens all the time. There are so many women out there who are gorgeous and they are beautiful and they are pretty, whatever positive attribute word you want to add to describe their physical appearance, who think they are hideous or hate looking at themselves in the mirror. So there are all of these people out there who, by all reasonable estimations, should be happy with the way they look. They should be thankful for their bodies, but they're not. They look at themselves and they see, I'm not good enough, I'm ugly, or whatever it is. They feel ashamed. Like a lot of people, I'm a big fan of looking at major physical transformations. I follow a lot of people online who go from skinny and scrawny to buffed and strong or fat and out of shape to lean and athletic, and that's really interesting to see. But one commonality I've found from a lot of these people is what actually brings them happiness. How before they talked about, I thought when I reached the other side of the spectrum, if you will, that looking in the mirror would make me happy. If I could see my abs, I would be happy. Or if I had bigger quadriceps, I'd be happy. If my biceps popped out, I'd be happy. And all of them seem to share this message of that's not really where happiness comes from. came from inside. It came from another source, not these external visual stimuli. So as I said, it's fun to have bigger muscles, to have more strength, more weight to throw around. That's great. And if you want that, that is an achievable goal. But that's not necessarily what should be your main focus. Now, you mentioned that squatting seems to conflict with your speed or your athleticism and so on. And I hear this a lot, that people often feel that lifting weights slows them down as far as martial arts is concerned. And I understand where that comes from, especially squatting. You've probably seen those day after leg day memes on the internet. One does not simply retrieve small objects from the floor the day after leg day. Or the day after leg day. Sometimes that's even worse. Right? But the body will adapt to the demands you put on it. Squatting is something you should spend a lot of time researching. It's a simple movement, but it's a simple movement you need to research a lot in order to optimize the benefits you get from it, in order to optimize your ability to recover from lifting, and in order to optimize your lifting schedule so that you are getting the most bang for your buck. So put in your research, and that will pay off in dividends. The idea that lifting weights is somehow bad or contradictory to martial arts training, I hate that. It's one of those reasons I made those videos titled, Martial Artists Are Terrible Athletes, because a lot of them really are. There are plenty of notable exceptions to that statement, and most of those guys lift weights. And they do it the right way. Strength is the precedent for athletic performance. And martial arts is one of the most athletic endeavors you can ever undertake. You can be strong, and fast, and flexible, and powerful, and you should be. So there's this idea that lifting weights or squatting or deadlifting is going to slow you down because you might feel sore the day after leg day or the day after that, something like that. And it's hard to move like you did when you weren't sore when you are sore. That's why you got to periodize your training, obviously, and you've got to focus on recovery. And if you take a day or two off doing nothing, being sedentary after squatting, you're going to feel terrible. And that will slow you down. It's not the lifting, it's the not moving. That's the problem. It's the not getting the blood to your body that needs reparation, that needs to be repaired and to recover. That's the problem, not the lifting. Think about this. People often think that because the average bodybuilder who only does bodybuilding is not particularly fast, if you will, compared to, say, a sprinter or a speed-based martial artist who can punch 15 times in a second or something like that. Why? Because of the way they train their body to move. All they do is moving weights in certain patterns, at certain speeds and certain tempos. And that's not training for speed. But look at the physique of sprinters. And they have big muscles, but they are very fast. Look at the physique of American football players. These guys are huge. Check out this agility ladder drill here. Okay? That is crazy, crazy speed. That is phenomenal speed. And that guy is huge. That guy lifts weights. And he can move faster than any martial artist I know. What makes the difference? The difference is these guys are doing sport-specific training. They're not just doing aesthetic weightlifting in order to experience hypertrophy in certain body parts. And martial artists should do the same. Yeah, you should lift to get stronger. You should do the compound lifts, but that's not all you should do. But let's get back to the topic of self-consciousness. So you feel self-conscious, right? Why is this so important? Why does this matter so much? I mean, so what if you wear the longer pants and you sweat a little bit more? It's not that big of a deal, is it? In the grand scheme of things, probably not. But it's important to you. And it's important to me, man. How we feel about ourselves is super important. You're probably thinking other people are going to laugh. Oh, you're a skinny guy. Oh, look at those skeleton legs. Ooh. The story we tell ourselves, this movie that plays in our mind, is very, very different from what's happening in reality. In reality, I'm going to tell you what, nobody, at least nobody important, cares. And if you have people in your class laughing at your physical appearance, screw them, man. How does that matter? How does that change you? It doesn't. But the reason I'm answering this question, the reason I'm spending so much time on it, is because I can relate to it. Because I experienced that same type of trauma, man. That same kind of embarrassment over my own body. I remember in college, I wanted to overcome this fear. Because I didn't want to be controlled by fear. It's terrible to be controlled by fear. And I saw a job posting to be a figure model for an art class. You know, where you take off your clothes and you pose in front of an art class. And they draw you. And you stand there. Naked or mostly naked. In various stages of being disrobed or whatever. And they draw you. And this goes on for some time. You can hold a pose for an hour. In the nude. And they're just staring at you. And I decided, I'm going to do this. I'm going to apply for this job. So I get this job as an art model. And that's a weird, weird job, man. It gives you a lot of time to think, because that's all you can do is you sit there, or stand there, or pose there, in some terribly uncomfortable position for 30 minutes or an hour while people draw you. And if you do that, man, I tell you what, your mind goes into some interesting places. Where you start to question everything you thought you understood about self-consciousness. Why was I so afraid of doing this? Why am I terrified of people seeing my skinny legs in the martial arts class, but I'm totally okay standing here in front of all of these people, staring at my body. Oh, and hey, that girl in the front row, she's my next door neighbor. True story. Yeah, that made it interesting seeing each other outside of class. When I stepped outside the door, looked over, she steps outside her door. I'm like, should we have a conversation about this? It never came up. It never came up. She didn't care. I get comments about my physical appearance every time I make a YouTube video. There are so so many comments about my physical appearance. And it is hilarious how radically different the perspectives are. On these negative comments, yeah, there are a bunch of negative comments. People want me to change. Like, oh, you're too skinny. Oh, you're too big. You're too fat. You're too strong. You're too... And they contradict each other. Constantly. So many comments about facial hair, man. So I generally shear off my facial hair about every 3 or 4 weeks, and then it grows back. And so I'm constantly getting comments about having a beard or no beard, or comments about being bald, comments about my voice. Like half the comments in the comment section are about my voice. Is that your real voice? Are you faking that voice? That's a forced voice, man. If you let thoughts from other people like that control you, then what the heck is going on with you? Aren't you the one in the driver's seat there? And if not, why not? So, a number of years ago, when I would coach classes, I would generally wear board shorts, the loose-fitting MMA shorts to class. And I had a lot of new students come in, and new students do this thing where they grab anything they can get a hold of with a vice grip, and they try to tear it to pieces. And so I went through so many pairs of board shorts and t-shirts, and they would just latch onto the loose-fitting clothing I was wearing, and they would tear it off. And I had so many destroyed, just ripped up pairs of shorts from all of these new students that I coached, because I coached hundreds of new students over the years. Especially here in Shanghai, where we have all these foreign expats who come and go. They'll stay for a few months, and then they'll go and they want to try out an MMA class or whatever for a couple of months and then leave. And that's fine. But new students are almost always the same. They buckle into their instincts, and they just want to grab something because it's comforting to hold on to something tight when you're experiencing combat stress. It's an instinct. And often that is fabric. And they will grab and they'll pull and they'll tear it. And I got sick of this. I was like, man, I don't have it in the budget to buy a new t-shirt and pair of shorts every time I train, because I do this multiple times a day. So I had this epiphany. I thought, okay, what about vale-tudo shorts? You know, those tight-fitting ones. Because you can't grab those like you do with the loose ones. And so I thought, okay, I'll try those out. So I put on some tight-fitting vale-tudo shorts. I started wearing tight-fitting rash guards so you can't grab them and tear them off and all that. And I went to class, and the new students, they're still trying to grab this fabric that isn't there. And I thought, wow, this is great. I don't have to buy a new outfit every time I train, because it's not getting torn to shreds, rolling with a dozen new guys. But some unexpected side effects of wearing tight-fitting clothing that shows off your form. One, if you're the dude wearing tights in an MMA class, a lot of guys, that gets into the subconscious, and they start thinking, I don't want to lose to the guy wearing the tight-fitted shorts up there. Fun fact. Your success rate on the triangle choke goes up 17% if you're wearing vale-tudo shorts or grappling tights. That number goes up to about 100% if those shorts say juicy on the butt. Just saying. Anyway, I digress. So, the aggression output of my training partners went up a lot when I dressed like that on the mat. Like, a lot. And that was really interesting. And that forced me to improve in some very unique ways that I would not have experienced otherwise if I had simply tried to blend in with everyone else. And yeah, man, spandex. One of the most fantastic functional fitness fabrics ever invented. But yeah, you gotta have a certain... what's the word I'm looking for? You can't be self-conscious about it, obviously. show in the form of your body. You just have to own it. Imperfections and all. So, yeah, man. You be you. If you want to wear, like, shorter Muay Thai shorts in class, cool. If you're afraid of, people making fun of you, overcome those inner demons in yourself, man. Wear what you want to wear, but overcome the inner demons in yourself telling you to live your life a certain way. There's this meme that's very popular on the internet where people write something like this dialogue between nobody and somebody. Nobody says nothing. And then the person in question, me, for example, says something nobody asked for. The idea is that nobody asked for it, so we shouldn't say it. Nonsense, my friends. If we limit what we do, if we limit our expression to only what is demanded by the public, what is demanded by others, what is asked for and approved on that perfect little checklist of society, then we have limited ourselves to nothing. And we'll never be innovators, and we'll never get anywhere worth getting. Aspire for more. Be your own man. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.